So first and foremost, giving all honor, all praise, and all glory unto the Most High Power. Welcome to another Sons of Isaac Israelite Congregation Sabbath study. So tonight's Sabbath study is going to be dealing with the exile of the southern kingdom of Judah. So there are a lot of events that led up to the actual exile of the kingdom of Judah, and there are many things that that happened to what caused Judah to go into captivity. So we're going to get a few of those things. We're going to read about the kingdom that actually exiled them and took them into captivity. And we're going to also see the things that transpired within the kingdom of Judah that caused them to go into captivity. So we see that the northern kingdom had already been exiled in 722 BC. So now we see that the southern kingdom is getting ready to go into exile as well. All right. So let's move on. So now this is dealing with Isaiah chapter 39. So we're going to start at verse 3 and then we're going to skip down to verse 6 and 7. So this is very important that we pay attention to the prophecy that it's being relayed here in the book of Isaiah. All right. Because Isaiah has a lot to do with also the judgment of the Babylonians, right? And Israel being restored. Okay. So now it reads in verse 3. Then came Isaiah the prophet unto King Hezekiah and said unto him, what said these men? And from whence came they unto thee? And Hezekiah said, they are come from a far country unto me, even from Babylon. So that's where these men came from. Okay. They came from Babylon. So you see, one of the sons of the Babylonian king came and he basically inquired of Hezekiah because remember, he heard that he was sick. Hezekiah's life was given 15 extra years. All right. So now we see verse 6. It says, behold, the days come, and this is the prophecy. All right. Behold, the days come that all that is in thine house and that which thy fathers have laid up in store until this day shall be carried to Babylon. Nothing shall be left, saith the Lord. And of thy sons that shall issue from thee, which thou shalt beget, shall they take away, and they shall be eunuchs in the palace of the king of Babylon. So this is what Isaiah was relaying to King Hezekiah. All right. And you see that Hezekiah played it off like, nah, shall not any longer something happening in my day. I'll be at peace with that. But it shows you here the prophecy of how the Babylonians are going to come and take all of the holy vessels away from the temple of the Lord, and it's going to be carried into Babylon, and nothing will be left. And we see that many of the Israelites, all right, and our kings will be in Babylon and they will be serving the king of Babylon. So that is true. That did happen. You can read about these events also in the Apocrypha in First Ezra 1, all right, and also in the other various books of the prophets, man. And you'll see the kings that did go into captivity, all right. And it's also in this PowerPoint that I will show you the exact kings that went into captivity in Babylon. So as you see, the 70-year prophecy of Israel being in captivity from 586 to 516 BC. This is the prophecy pertaining to Daniel. All right. So this is Daniel's prophecy of Babylon. And this is in the book of Daniel, chapter 7, and I'm going to start at verse 1. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and a vision of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matters. Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of the heaven strove upon the great sea, and four beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. The first like a lion, and had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. So now we see that this is speaking about the Babylonians. This is their prophecy. All right. This is the vision that Daniel had. So when he saw that the four winds strove upon the great sea, right? So this is talking about all of the wars that Daniel was envisioning that was happening in the regions of the Mediterranean Sea, right? So all of what we know as North Africa. You see Italy, you see Spain, you see the Levant, which is Israel, going into Babylonia, Assyria. These are all of the things that Daniel will see. All right, the wars that occurred and how they played out. So this is the vision that he was having upon his bed. And it says, and four great beasts. So now these four great beasts, according to the same book of Daniel, chapter 7 and verse 17, it says, the four beasts which thou saw are four kingdoms. So now these are kingdoms which Daniel is seeing, okay, coming up out of the regions of the Mediterranean. All right. And as you see the maps, you'll see how they began to transform the known regions of the Mediterranean itself. All right, going from Babylon, the Persians and Medes, okay, going from the Greeks even to the Romans themselves, all right, which had the largest extent of territory, okay, out of the four beasts. And they were the most fierce out of the four beasts were the Babylonians, okay. But the golden age of the four beasts was Babylon, all right, because when you read in Daniel the second chapter, it speaks about that Nebuchadnezzar had a dream, and in this dream, Nebuchadnezzar had seen a statue, and he seen these exact beasts or these kingdoms, all right, that were upon this statue, okay, of gold, silver, brass, iron, and clay, and iron mixed with merry clay. So these are the things in which Daniel saw, okay, and now it says the first was like a lion and it had eagle's wings. So in representation of a griffin, right? So we see on the walls of Babylon, there are many pictures of this mythical creature. Okay, so this is how we know and understand that this is the exact kingdom that Daniel saw. This is not talking about any other kingdom, but Babylon itself. All right. He said he beheld till the wings were plucked, meaning how they were taken out of rulership, okay, and how they began to become weak in the earth. All right. So remember the Babylonians, man, they were fierce. They were fierce as lions, right? A lion is a predator. Okay, so is an eagle. An eagle is a predator. You mix the two, you get what you call a griffin, man, a very fierce and mythical beast. Okay. So, and then you see that the Babylonians became weak, all right, through much of their prosperity and their wealth. They became lackadaisical, and this is where the Persians and Medes had came in and took over, all right, and took power from Babylon himself. Okay. So now the Neo-Babylonian Empire, all right, so this was the empire that was up and coming during the time of the kings of Israel. So now Assyria was still in power, but you see that the Babylonians were coming up, all right, so they began to form of various alliances with the nations around about, and we're going to see the nations in which they formed alliances with, all right, and one of the main alliances that they formed with was who we know as the Medes, all right, or the Median Empire. Okay, so this is the Neo Babylonian Empire from 622. That's when it started with Neopalazar, okay, to about 539. All right, which was the last king, Nebuchadnezzar. All right, so the actual total length of the empire's reign was 87 years. Okay, so you see the list of the Babylonian kings. So this would be about the 11th dynasty of Babylon. All right, so this was the new dynasty of Babylon. Okay, so this was a new power that was coming up upon the face of the earth. So now you see the first king, which would be considered Neopalazar in the English, and also you see the second king, which would be Nebuchadnezzar. All right, those are the two kings. Those are the two kings that are responsible for the rise and the actual upcoming of the Neo-Babylonian Empire. So Neopalazar was the king at this time, and he started many rebellions against the Assyrian Empire. See, Nebuchadnezzar, his son, was actually his general. All right, so he fought many of the battles against the various nations. So now dealing with the destruction of Nineveh in 612 BC. So now it says in 616 BC, the Babylonians began a military campaign against the middle region of the Euphrates of the Assyrian Empire. In 612 BC, excuse me, by 612 BC, the Babylonians and the Medes combined to march against Nineveh and captured it and destroyed it completely. The remnant of the Assyrian forces fled from Haran, Syria, in the northwestern part of the Mesopotamia, despite their attempts to ally with Egypt. They were finally defeated in 610 BC, ending the power of the Assyrian Empire. And that was also prophesied by the prophet Jonah. And it was also mentioned in the book of Tobit, the downfall of the Assyrian Empire. So now the alliance of Babylon, all right, with the Medians, okay. So this was the empire that they had formed an alliance with, the much larger uh, empire, which was Midian, okay, and the much stronger and much fiercer Babylonian warriors. So it says here, Cyrexus was born in the Median capital of Ecbatane. So now we're dealing with the kings of the Medes. His father Phrotus was killed in a battle against the Assyrians led by Ashurbanipal, the king of Assyria. After Phrotus' demise, the Scythians overran Media. Cyrexus, seeking revenge, killed the Scythian leaders and proclaimed himself king of Media. After throwing off the Scythians, he prepared for war against Assyria. Cyrexus reorganized the Median army, then allied himself with King Neopalazar of Babylonia, a mutual enemy of Assyria. So you see that they had a mutual enemy. They both had interest in taking down the Assyrian Empire. So this is what caused them to form their alliance. It says this alliance was formalized through the marriage of Cyrexus' daughter Ammaeus to Neopalazar's son Nebuchadnezzar II. So this is how they were able to unify, solidify their arrangement of their alliance. And it says these allies overthrew the Assyrian Empire and destroyed Nineveh in 612 BC. So now you see that this is the alliance that came together and destroyed the Assyrian Empire. Okay. So now this was the Battle of Carchemish now. This was the Battle of Carchemish in 605 BC. It says the Egyptians met the full might of the Babylonian army led by Nebuchadnezzar. So this is when Nebuchadnezzar had became king. At Carchemish, where the combined Egyptian and Assyrian forces were soundly destroyed, Assyria ceased to exist as an independent power, and Egypt retreated and was no longer a significant force in the ancient Near East. Babylonia reached its economical peak after 605 BC. And you see that this battle of Carchemish is recorded in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 46 and verse 1, also in Second Chronicles and also in Second Kings, chapter 24. All right. So this is when the Babylonians were actually coming into their absolute and complete power. All right, they destroyed the Egyptians and they also destroyed the Assyrian forces as well. So now let's deal. So now we had got a good we got an understanding of how Babylon came into power, right? The enemies that they had to defeat. So now let's see what happened with the kingdom of Judah. For once, the kingdom of Judah was a very powerful and a very well military organized kingdom. But then, as wicked kings began to come into play, this is what began the downward spiral of the kingdom of Judah. So now, let's deal with how the kingdom began to fall. The evils of King Manasseh. All right, so this is in the Josephus. Okay, so it says when King Hezekiah had survived the interval of time already mentioned, and had dwelt all that time in peace, he died, having completed 54 years of his life, and he reigned 29. But when his son Manasseh, whose mother's name was Helesabah of Jerusalem, had taken the kingdom, he departed from the conduct of his father, and fell into a course of life quite contrary thereto, and showed himself in the manner of most wicked in all respects, and omitted no sort of empathy. But imitated those transgressions of the Israelites, by the commission of which against God they had been destroyed. For he was so hardy as to defile the temple of God and the city and the whole country. For by setting out from a contempt of God, he barbarously slew all the righteous men that were among the Hebrews, nor would he spare the prophets, for he every day slew some of them till Jerusalem was overflown with blood. So this is one of the reasons why the Lord said that he was going to completely remove Judah out of his sight, because of the evils of King Manasseh. So King Manasseh did repent, but the Lord could not acquit any of the transgressions in which Manasseh had did. And you're going to see that the rest of his descendants were just very evil. All right. The prophet Jeremiah. So now, just to get a little bit about the prophet Jeremiah, Jeremiah was a man of the Lord. All right. He was also he also began his ministry during towards the end of the reign of King Josiah. So this is when Jehoiakim had became king, and this is when the word of the Lord had came to him, and it came to him for this exact reason. So I just jumped around a little bit, but I just wanted to get to the initial point. So it says in Jeremiah 27:1, in the beginning of the reign of Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah, king of Judah, came this word unto Jeremiah from the Lord, saying, Thus saith the Lord to me, make thee bonds and yokes, and put them upon thy neck, and send them to the king of Edom, to the king of Moab, and to the king of the Ammonites, and to the king of Tyrus, and the king of Zidon, by the hand of the messengers which come to Jerusalem unto Zedekiah king of Judah, and command them, saying unto their masters, Thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, thus shall ye say unto your masters. Right? So this is what they were to say to their masters. And this is dealing with the nations serving Nebuchadnezzar. So now it says, verse 5, and I have made the earth, the man, and the beast that are upon the ground, by my power and by my outstretched arm I have given it unto whom it seemeth meet unto me. And now I have given all these lands into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, my servant, and the beast of the field I have given him also to serve him. And it shall come to pass that the nation and kingdom which will not serve the same Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and that will not put their neck under the yoke of the king of Babylon, the kingdom will that nation will I punish, saith the Lord, with the sword, with the famine, and with the pestilence, until I have consumed them by his hand. So you see, the Lord said that these nations must serve Nebuchadnezzar, because he was using Nebuchadnezzar as a tool of judgment upon these various nations for their wickedness. Now, because our fathers and our king did not hearken unto the voice of the Lord God through Jeremiah, his servant, his prophet, our fathers ended up going into captivity and suffering the punishment that you read here in verse 8. Okay. So now this is the prophecy. This is Jeremiah's prophecy against Jerusalem. So now check this out. It says in Jeremiah 26, I'm going to start at verse 1. In the beginning of the reign of Jehoiakim, so Jehoiakim's reign began around 609, all right, BC. The son of Josiah, king of Judah, came this word from the Lord, saying, Thus saith the Lord, stand in the court of the Lord's house, and speak unto all the cities of Judah, which come to worship in the Lord's house. All the words that I command thee to speak unto them, diminish not a word. If so be they will hearken and turn every man from his evil way, that I may repent me of the evil which I propose to do unto them because of the evil of their doings. And thou shalt say unto them, Thus saith the Lord, if ye will not hearken to me, to walk in all my law which I have set before you, to hearken to my words of my servant the prophets whom I have sent unto you, both rise up early and sending them, but ye have not hearkened. Then will I make this house like Shiloh, and I will make this city a curse to all nations of the earth. So this was the judgment if Jerusalem and those of the cities of Judah did not hearken unto the voice of the Lord. All right. So this is what Jeremiah was prophesying near the house of the Lord. So this is what he was letting the people know. He was giving them warning. And you're going to see that Micah, the prophet Micah, yes, in the minor prophets, the prophet Micah was prophesying also during the time of Jeremiah as well. He was prophesying alongside Jeremiah. Micah's prophecy of the destruction of Jerusalem and its rulers. This is in Jeremiah 26 and 18. So you see there were three prophets that prophesied. So you had Jeremiah, Micah, and Urijah. Urijah, because he feared the people, right, and the word of the king that they were going to be slain. Urijah fled into Egypt, and he ended up being captured by the king's royal guard. Right, they brought him back to Jerusalem and they killed him. Okay, so this was during the time of during that time. All right. So he got killed in front of Jehoiakim. So it says in Jeremiah 26:18, Micah the Mosherite prophesied in the days of Hezekiah, king of Judah, and spake to all the people of Judah, saying, Thus saith the Lord of hosts, Zion shall be plowed like a field, and Jerusalem shall become heaps, and the mountains of the house as a high places of a forest. So this was the prophecy that Micah had pronounced against Jerusalem and telling them they were going to be destroyed. All right. So now this same prophecy you'll find in the book of Micah itself. So this is in Micah chapter 3 now. So this is dealing with the evil of the leadership. So Micah chapter 3 verse 9, hear this I pray you, ye heads of the house of Jacob. So we're talking about all the rulers, all of those who were in charge, and the princes of the house of Israel, that abhor judgment, that pervert all equity, meaning justice. They build up Zion with blood and Jerusalem with iniquity. So they make the people dumb, okay? And they fill Jerusalem with sin. The heads thereof judge for reward, and the priests thereof teach for hire. The prophets thereof divide for money, yet will they lean upon the Lord and say, Is not the Lord among us? None evil can come upon us. Therefore shall Zion for your sakes be plowed as a field, and Jerusalem shall become heaps, and the mountain of the house as the high places of the forest. So we see that this is the exact prophecy that took place in Jeremiah 26 and 18. So these were the exact words of Micah, but in more detail here in the book of Micah. This is talk going into the leadership. The leadership was very evil. All right, especially as he said, the priests, the prophets, right, and the judges of the people. They were the ones, man, who were causing Israel to sin. They were the ones who were causing Israel to be built up, to be dumb, okay, and be filled with iniquity. So now the false prophets, this is in Jeremiah chapter 23. I'm going to start at verse 1. Woe be unto you pastors that destroy and scatter the sheep of my pasture, saith the Lord. Therefore, thus saith the Lord, the God of Israel, against the pastors that feed my people, ye have scattered my flock and driven them away, and have not visited them. Behold, I will visit you, I will visit upon you the evil of your doing, saith the Lord. Right? So these men, they scatter the Lord's pasture. All right. All of the Lord's flock they've scattered, man, because they perverted judgment. They've been hypocritical, right? They don't help the poor and the needy. They do not judge the cause of the mother of the of the fatherless, of the widows. All right, all of those aspects of judgment and helping their people, they reject it. All right, all for their love of money and their increasing gain. Okay, they omitted judgment, all of the above, man. And this is what caused many of the people of the Lord to fall away from the Lord and to go serve other gods. All right. And this is the fault of the false prophets. Okay. The ones that are supposed to be feeding the Lord's flock. They're the ones that are scattering the Lord's flock. So now these are just other scriptures that go into that aspect as well. So in Isaiah 29 and we're going to start at verse 10, and it says, for the Lord hath poured out the spirit of deep sleep, and hath closed your eyes. The prophets and your rulers, the seers, hath he covered, right? So he's put strong delusions upon the prophets and the seers, right? To where they see vain things, they see worthless visions. All right. They're being fooled and deceived into believing the lies that they're prophesying in the name of the Lord, but they're actually not. They're prophesying out of their own heart. Okay, deceiving the people. And that is why the book of the Lord has become a book that is sealed to them. All right, that's why they can't receive the understanding of it, because they have been deceived. All right, the Lord has sent no strong delusions. That's why you got to read in the book of Thessalonians, First Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 11, where it talks about the false prophets, man, and how they receive strong delusions. All right, that they should believe a lie. So now this is in Isaiah chapter 30 and verse 9. Starting at verse 9. This people is a rebellious people. Excuse me. This is a rebellious people, lying children, children that will not hear the law of the Lord, which say to the seers, see not, and to the prophets, prophesy not unto us right things, speak unto us smooth things, prophesy deceit. So this is what the people, want to hear. They talk about a rebellious people, all right? He says lying children, children that lie, all right? They lie to themselves, lying to others. They refuse to hear the law of the Lord, all right? They don't want to hear the law, statutes, and commandments because that's iniquity to them. All right. So it says, which said to the seers, all right, see not, and to the prophets, prophesy not unto us right things. So the seers, the ones who would foretell the events, man, of the coming destructions, right? Prophesy against the great kingdoms, right? Seer is another word for prophet. So they're telling the seers, see not. Don't tell us that we're gonna be destroyed for our iniquity. Okay. And then he's telling the prophets, prophesy not unto us right things. No, don't teach those laws, statutes, and commandments to us. Prophesy unto us smooth things. Prophesy to us deceit. Tell us that we're going to be prosperous. Tell us how much wealth and gain we're going to increase, and tell us our kingdom is going to last forever. That's what we want to hear. We want to hear how blessed we are. These are the lies and deceit that the people want to hear. All right. He says, get you out of the way, turn aside the out of the path, cause the Holy One of Israel to cease from before us. So they didn't want to hear nothing about the Most High. All right. Jeremiah chapter 2, verses 8 and verses 26. It says, the priests say not, where is the Lord? And they that handle the law knew me not. So those that were supposed to be the experts in the law, they don't even know the Most High, man, because they're not doing the things that the law requires. The pastors also transgress against me, and the prophets prophesy by Baal. They prophesy by false God. And it says, and walk after things that do not profit. As a thief is ashamed when he is found, so is the house of Israel ashamed, and their kings and their princes and their priests and their prophets. All right. So all of these are going to be ashamed in the day of the judgment, the great judgment that's going to come upon the kingdom of Judah. All right. So now it says in Jeremiah 5 and 13, and the prophets shall become as wind. Wind is nothing. And the word is not in them. Thus shall it be done unto them. Okay. So now you see that he said that the prophets are nothing. Okay. So now you see this is going to be done unto them. So now it says, so now dealing with the prophecy of the captivity of Judah, right? So now it says, in Jeremiah chapter 20, verses 4, starting at verse 4. Thus saith the Lord, behold, I will make thee a terror to thyself, and to all thy friends, and they shall fall by the sword of their enemies, and thine eyes shall not behold it, and I will give all Judah into the hand of the king of Babylon, and he shall carry them captive into Babylon, and shall slay them with the sword. So you see that this was the major prophecy that was being prophesied, you know, to the children of Israel that they were going to go into captivity if they did not repent. All right. So you'll see that this speaking about the captivity was being told all throughout the book of Jeremiah. All right. And you'll see the captivity of the various kings, all right, of Judah that were carried away into Babylon. You'll see that Jeremiah, the book of Jeremiah talks about that too. So Jeremiah dealt with a lot of the madness, and he's seen a lot of the destruction that was happening to the children of Judah, during this time. Now you see this is talking about Jehoiakim, or King Jehoiakim the rebellious. All right, you see that he rebelled against Nebuchadnezzar, who placed him in power, right? And Nebuchadnezzar ended up carrying him away into Babylon. So you see Jehoiakim, the start of his reign was in 609 BC, right? And in 589 was the last year of his reign. So he reigned 11 years. So in 589, Israelites were carried captive and all the vessels of the house of God into Babylon, into a Babylonian temple. So all of the vessels of the Lord were carried into the Babylonian temple. So now just to read a little bit about the historical account of Jehoiakim, right? So I'm just going to skip through a little bit. So it says, now the time after the king of Babylon made an expedition against Jehoiakim, whom he received into the city, and this out of fear of the foregoing predictions of this prophet, so as supposing he would suffer nothing that was terrible, because he neither shut the gate nor fought against him. Yet when he was come into the city, he did not observe the covenants he had made, but he slew such as were in the flower of their age, and such as were of great dainty, together with together with their king Jehoiakim. So it says that he slew Jehoiakim, and then you'll see later on as he reads, you'll see that he made Jehoiachin king in his place, and then you'll see that also, you'll see Ezekiel, the prophet, was also carried into Babylon during this time as well. Okay. So now this is Jehoiachin the childless, all right? So dealing with the prophecy pertaining to Jehoiachin, Jehoiachin was basically the last king to sit on the throne of David, all right, just as it says. Okay, he was also the last king to sit on the throne of David. All right, so he started his reign in 589. He only reigned for 3 months, then he was carried away captive by Nebuchadnezzar, all right? So now this is the account of it. All right. So I'm just going to read a little bit, as I said before, and then I'm going to read what is highlighted in green. So it says, but a terror seized on the king of Babylon, who had given the kingdom to Jehoiachin, and that immediately he was afraid that he should bear him a grudge because of his killing his father, right, which was Jehoiakim. Okay. So it says, and thereupon should make the country to revolt from him. So this was the fear of the king of Babylon, or Nebuchadnezzar. So before there would be any type of revolt, okay, he said he was like, all right, I'm just going to carry him captive. So then it says, let's read this line 18. So it says, for the king of Babylon did not keep it, but gave orders to his generals to take all that were in the city captives, both the young and the handicraftsmen, and bring them bound to him. And the number were 10,832. And also Jehoiachin and his mother and friends. All right. And then you'll see that he appointed Jehoiachin's uncle Zedekiah, which was Jehoiakim's brother, as king. All right. So Zedekiah would be the king that would sit on the throne of Judah. All right. So remember, Zedekiah's line wouldn't be the last ones to sit upon the throne of Judah. It was actually Jehoiachin. Through his line, no one will be acknowledged as the king of Judah anymore. So this is Zedekiah the treacherous. So it says in 589, to 586 BC. He reigned 11 years. And in the ninth month of Zedekiah's reign, in the 10th month, on the 20th day of the month, Nebuchadnezzar began to besiege Jerusalem in about 589 BC and built forts around the city, besieged it until the 11th year in the fourth month. Then Jerusalem was taken, and the remnant of Israelites that were carried out of Judah in 586. Okay, so sorry about that. You got some typos here. And of Israelites were carried away captive. So now let's get a little history to back this up. So this is in what we know as this is in the Josephus. Okay. So it says now Zedekiah was 21 years old when he took the government, and had the same mother with his brother Jehoiakim, but was a despiser of justice and of his duty, for truly those of the same age with him were wicked about him. And the whole multitude did what unjust and insolent things they pleased. For which reason the prophet Jeremiah came often to him and protested to him and insisted that he must leave off from these impurities and transgressions and take care of what was right. So this is what he was supposed to do: take care of what was right, take care of the kingdom. So now it says, so now boom, let's drop down. I'm going to read what's in the green. All right. So now it says, and it happened that the two prophets agreed with one another in what they said as to all other things, that the city should be taken, and Zedekiah himself should be taken captive. But Ezekiel disagreed with him and said that Zedekiah should not see Babylon, while Jeremiah said to him, the king of Babylon should carry him away thither in bonds. So then he says, and because they did not both say the same thing as to the circumstance, he disbelieved what they had appeared to both appeared to agree in, and condemned them as not to speak the truth therein. Although all things foretold him did come to pass according to the prophecy, as well, as we shall show upon the fitter opportunity. So we see that those things did happen. So you see, and no, Zedekiah shall not see Babylon, but Jeremiah was saying that yes, he is. He's going to be carried away into Babylon in chains, right? But Zedekiah not understanding that both of the prophets were speaking rightfully. All right, they were speaking, but they were both witnessing two different events. All right, speaking about two different events that was going to happen in Zedekiah. So now Zedekiah's in. This is in Jeremiah 21:7. And afterward said the Lord, I will deliver Zedekiah king of Judah and his servants and the people, and as such as are left in this city, from the pestilence, from the sword, from the famine, into the hands of Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon, and into the hand of their enemies, and into the hand of those that seek their life. And he shall smite them with the edge of the sword. He shall not spare them, neither have pity nor have mercy. So that this was going to be the judgment of the kings of Israel. Excuse me, Zedekiah, the king of Israel. So now this is going into 2 Kings chapter 25. All right. So I'm going to read verse 7 just to get to the point. So it says, and they slew the sons of Zedekiah before his eyes and put out, they slew the sons of Zedekiah before his eyes and put out the eyes of Zedekiah and bound him with fetters of brass and carried him into Babylon. So you see that the prophecy in which Jeremiah and Ezekiel spake, it was right. You understand? So because he said, oh, because they're not initially in agreement, you know what I'm saying, in the way or the manner, but you see that both came to pass. All right. So the last thing that Zedekiah saw was his sons, all right, being killed right before his very eyes, and he was carried into Babylon, and that's where he died. Okay. So now the Babylonian siege of Jerusalem, there were many horrific things that happened during this siege. There were many things that you could read about that are recorded in the book of Lamentations, that I advise brothers and sisters to read in order to understand through the eyes of Jeremiah many of the things that were going on. All right, you see that there was starvation, there were men dying, there were people just our people were just going through all kind of just heartaches and pains, being slain and killed, killing one another. So Jeremiah seen it all during the siege. So now this is in Jeremiah chapter 52, verses 3 through 8. Okay. So now it says, for the anger of the Lord, for through the anger, for though the anger of the Lord it came to pass in Jerusalem and Judah till he had cast them out of his presence, that Zedekiah rebelled against the king of Babylon. So remember, he was not supposed to do that. He was supposed to submit to the king of Babylon, but he did not. And it came to pass in the 9th year of his reign, in the 10th month, and in the 10th day of the month, that Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon came, he and all his army, against Jerusalem, and pitched against it, and built forts against it round about. So the city was besieged until the 11th year of Zedekiah, so for 3 years. And in the 4th month, on the 9th day of the month, the famine was sore in the city, so that there was no bread for the people of the land. Then the city was broken up, and all the men of war fled and went forth out of the city by night, and by the way of the gate between the two walls, which was by the king's garden. Now the Chaldeans were by the city round about, and they went by the way of the plains. But the army of the Chaldeans pursued after the king, and overtook Zedekiah in the plains of Jericho, and all his army was scattered from him. So they didn't protect Zedekiah, man. Everybody was like, hey, it's every man for himself. All right, and that's when Zedekiah was taken, and his eyes was put out before him. So now the exile, so now this is dealing with Judah, the exile to Babylon. So it says in 2 Kings 25 and verse 1, chapter 25 and verse 21, the king of Babylon smote them and slew them at Riblah in the land of Hamath. So Judah was out, carried away out of their land. So now you see the Jews were carried away into Babylon, and now they had to endure 70 years of bondage in the land of Babylon. But this was the message of the Most High through his servant Jeremiah, the man of God. And this is what he told him. All right. So this is in Jeremiah chapter 29 and verse 4. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, unto all that are carried away captive, whom I have caused to be carried away from Jerusalem unto Babylon. Build ye houses and dwell in them, and plant gardens and eat the fruit of them. So this is what is being told to the Jews that are in Babylon now. So he's letting them know, man, to build you houses there, because it's going to be a very, very long captivity. All right, 70 years, that's a long time, man, to be, outside of your homeland and living amongst others. So now it says, take ye wives and begat sons and daughters, and take wives for your sons, and give your daughters to husbands, that they may bear sons and daughters, that ye may be increased there and not diminished, right? Because it was many things were going to be happening, man. They know the Babylonians were going to oppress them. So of course, the Most High said, you know what, continue to marry, have sons, have daughters. You know what I mean? Life goes on so that you don't diminish while you're in that land. It says, and seek the peace of the city, whitherso I have caused you to be carried away captive, and pray unto the Lord for it, right? So we said, seek peace. All right, the inhabitants there, live amongst them, man. Like it says in the New Testament, as much as life within you, live peacefully amongst all men. All right. So this is the same principle that the Jews had to apply while they were in bondage in Babylon. And it says, for in the peace thereof ye shall have peace. So they said, and pray unto the Lord for that peace. Okay. For in the peace thereof ye shall have peace. Okay. He says, "For thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, let not your prophets and your diviners that be in the midst of you deceive you, neither hearken to your dreams which ye cause to be dreamed. For they prophesy falsely unto you in my name. I have not sent them, saith the Lord." So remember, the false prophets, they went into captivity too, all right, in Babylon. So Jeremiah is letting them know, man, not to hearken to those men who lied to you. And it says, "For thus saith the Lord," but this is verse 10, "For thus saith the Lord, that after 70 years be accomplished at Babylon, I will visit you and perform my good word towards you in causing you to return to this place." So he even promised that Israel or the Judah would be restored unto their land. All right. But they had to endure 70 years of being away. Now, the Jews living in Babylon. So this was an account of Jews that were of outside of Israel, and they lived in Babylonia. So this is an actual account. So it says, because of the Babylonian captivity, Babylonia became the most important center of Jewish life during the exile. We know a bit about Jewish thought and life because of some Jewish communities in Egypt, but virtually nothing from the Assyrian captivity in 722 BC and of the 10 tribes of the 10 lost tribes. The Jewish people survived in Babylon because the Babylonian policy allowed the Jews to settle in towns and, and villages along the Kabar River, which were an irrigation channel. Excuse me. The Jews were allowed to live together in communities. They were allowed to farm and perform other sorts of labors to earn income. Many Jews eventually became wealthy. This was probably because of the influence of certain Jews who administered in the palace of Babylon, like Daniel and his friends. It is also likely that the Lord posed that the Jews should settle down there and get comfortable. Then, after 70 years were complete, it would be a test of faith to pick up and return to Jerusalem. And that it was. You'll see that many Jews did not return to Jerusalem, all right? So I believe it was 49,000 Israelites that did return, okay, and almost like 1,000 of their servants. So this is dealing with the archaeology and the Babylonian captivity. So it says there is solid evidence in historical writings and in the archaeology for the events involved in the Babylonian captivity. Among the many archaeological discoveries that confirm the accounts written in the Bible, here are a few that stand out. The Lachish letters. Important light regarding the last days of Judah by the discovery in 1935 of 18 orchical clay tablets with writing in ink written in an ancient cursive script belonging to the 7th century BC. They were discovered in Lachish or Tal ed Duwir among the ruins of a small guard room just outside the city gate. Then, a few years later, 3 inscription potsherds were also found at the site, and likely others. They contain names and lists from the period just before the fall of Jerusalem in 586 BC. Most of the letters were dispatched from the Jewish commander named Hoshaniah, who was stationed at an outpost north of Lachish, who apparently was responsible for intercepting the signal from Asakah and Lachish during the time when the obviously didn't get the rest of that. So those are the Lachish letters. All right, so this is the Babylonian Chronicles. I'll just read a little bit of it. So it says the Babylonian Chronicles make it possible to assign the fall of Jerusalem to the second of Adar, or March 16th, in 597. Accounts of Babylonian attacks on Jerusalem in 597 and in 586 BCE. So then it gives you the record at the bottom. It says in the 7th month of Nebuchadnezzar's, or 599 BCE, in the month Keslev, the king of Babylon assembled his army, and he could after he had invaded the land of Hittite, or Syria, Palestine, he laid siege to the city of Judah. All right. So this is the Babylonian Chronicles. Now you see that this is the Jehoiakim inscription. So basically, this is showing you how Jehoiakim was taken away captive. This is the Eliakim symbol. Okay, going back to it says, this bears the inscription, the property of Eliakim, steward of Jehoiakim. It is from debris. All right. So it says Tel Bit Misrim, located 13 miles southwest of Hebron. It was excavated by William F. Albright in 1926. So this is the Eliakim seal. Then you have the Cyrus cylinder. Okay, it gives you the history of Cyrus when he came into power. The Ishardon prism. Okay, the ceramic cinder of King Nebuchadnezzar. Belshazzar from the book of Daniel. So this is his prism. Now these are the closing scriptures. So it says in Proverbs 29 and verse 12, it says, if a ruler hearken to lies, all his servants are wicked. So that's what happened to many of the kings of Israel, especially Zedekiah, because he hearkened unto his associates around him. You know, they were all wicked. Okay, so he hearkened unto the lies. He was wicked, and of course, you know, all of those that were around him were wicked. Verse 14 and verse 25, a true witness delivereth souls, but a deceitful witness speaketh lies. So you see, Jeremiah was trying to deliver the souls of, you know, many of the false prophets and the king, all right, and his servants, okay? But you see that the false prophets, they were the ones that were speaking lies, all right? So they were the deceitful witnesses, and Jeremiah was a true witness. So then in Deuteronomy chapter 18 verse 20 through 22, it says, but the prophet which shall presume to speak a word in my name, which I have not commanded him to speak, or that shall speak in the name of other gods, even that prophet shall die. So this is showing you the judgment that the Most High has pronounced against false prophets and the things that they say. So there were many false prophets that were among the kingdom of Judah, man, and was causing Judah to sin greatly, all right, transgress greatly against the commandments of the Lord and against the Lord himself, all right. They were speaking, saying they come in the name of the Lord, but they were not coming in the name of the Lord. So they had other agendas, and, you know, they were causing the people to sin. So as you see, you know, they were false prophets, all right. And it says, and if thou say in thine heart, how shall we know the word which the Lord hath not spoken? When a prophet speaketh in the name of the Lord, if the thing follow not, nor come to pass, the thing which the Lord hath not spoken, but the prophet that hath spoken it presumptuously, thou shalt not be afraid of him. All right. So the Lord makes it perfectly clear, man. If the thing does not follow, nor does it come to pass, guess what? He's a false prophet. All right. He's a false prophet. Okay. So you know false prophets from righteous prophets, so on and so forth. All right. The Lord gives us, you know, the correct scriptural guideline for us to, you know, to understand, man, and to, you know, to understand and deliver ourselves, man, from those lies. So, of course, you know, thank you once again for tuning in to another Sons of Isaac Israelite Sabbath service. And, of course, you know, continue studying Kwam Yasharala, Rise to the Nation of Israel, so-called Blacks, Hispanics of Indian descent, and Native American Indians. And with that, I say shalom.